The wedding guests thought the old man was a trespasser. That was the first mistake. The second mistake happened when security grabbed his arm in front of everyone. But the biggest mistake of all, the groom smiling while it happened. Crystal chandeliers glowed above the ballroom as hundreds of wealthy guests watched the scene unfold near the entrance. A violin quartet continued playing awkwardly while waiters froze beside silver trays of champagne. The old man stood silently in a worn gray suit holding a small gift box against his chest. Cheap shoes, wrinkled sleeves, hands rough from decades of hard labor. He looked completely out of place among luxury watches and designer gowns worth more than most people's yearly salaries. And standing beside security with visible disgust on his face was the groom himself. "Sir, this wedding is private," the groom said coldly. "To leave immediately." The old man opened his mouth softly. "I'm here to see my daughter." Several nearby guests exchanged uncomfortable looks, because the bride standing across the ballroom had suddenly turned completely pale. "Dad," she whispered under her breath, but nobody heard her except the maid of honor beside her. The groom crossed his arms impatiently. "I don't know who invited you, but this isn't the place for handouts." The old man lowered his eyes quietly. "I didn't come for money." "Then why are you here?" Before the men could answer, the groom gave security a sharp nod. "Escort him out." That's when the ballroom doors opened again, and the color drained from the groom's face instantly, because walking in behind the old man was the last person he ever expected to see, his company's chief financial officer. The same executive who controlled every promotion, every investment approval, and every executive contract inside the billion-dollar corporation where the groom worked. The CFO looked directly at the old man beside security, then slowly asked the question that changed the entire wedding. "Why is the founder of this company being thrown out of his own daughter's wedding?" Complete silence crashed across the ballroom. Even the musicians stopped playing. The groom blinked in confusion. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because suddenly the poor old man everyone judged at first glance no longer looked powerless at all. His name was Walter Brooks. And 25 years earlier, he built one of the largest logistics companies in the southeastern United States from the back of a rusted delivery truck. Nobody at the wedding knew that story. Not from looking at him. Especially not the groom. Ethan Carlisle believed appearances revealed everything worth knowing about people. Expensive suits meant success. Luxury cars meant intelligence. Wealth meant value. And poverty. Poverty embarrassed him. That belief followed Ethan his entire life. Even tonight, his wedding day, the ballroom inside the Grand Meridian Hotel overflowed with politicians, executives, and social media influencers. Ethan spent nearly $500,000 creating the perfect image of success. Every flower imported, every champagne bottle rare, every detail designed to impress powerful people, including the bride herself. Sophia Brooks stood near the stage in a stunning white dress smiling politely for photographs while silently fighting exhaustion. Planning the wedding had become less about love and more about Ethan's obsession with status. He controlled everything: guest lists, decorations, seating charts, even which family members looked appropriate enough for photos. Sophia ignored the warning signs for months because she convinced herself stress changed people temporarily. Tonight proved otherwise. When Walter entered the ballroom quietly carrying a small wrapped gift, he already knew he looked different from the other guests. His suit was old. Not because he lacked money, because he stopped caring about impressing strangers years ago. After retiring from Brooks Logistics, Walter lived simply on a ranch 3 hours outside Atlanta. No social media, no interviews, no luxury parties. Most younger executives inside the company never even saw his face before. They only knew stories about the mysterious founder who stepped away after his wife died. Walter preferred it that way. Sophia begged him to attend the wedding despite his discomfort around wealthy crowds. So he came, for her, not realizing Ethan secretly hoped he wouldn't. The moment Ethan spotted Walter near the entrance, irritation crossed his face immediately. He whispered sharply towards Sophia. "Said your father owned property." "He does." "That man." Sophia frowned. "What's wrong with you?" Ethan forced a tight smile for nearby guests. "Could have at least warned me he'd show up looking like that." Sophia's expression hardened instantly. "That's my father." But Ethan barely listened anymore, because several executives from his corporation stood nearby watching curiously, including senior leadership. Ethan hated embarrassment more than anything. So instead of greeting Walter respectfully, he humiliated him publicly. Back in the present, the ballroom remained frozen after the CFO's question shattered the room. Ethan stared blankly. "Founder," he repeated weakly. The CFO stepped forward calmly. "Yes, Walter Brooks founded Brooks Logistics before selling controlling shares years ago." Murmurs exploded instantly among guests. Phones appeared beneath tables as people began searching the company online. Photos surfaced quickly. Younger version of Walter beside freight trucks, magazine covers, business awards. The realization spread through the ballroom like wildfire. The poor old man wasn't poor at all. He was worth hundreds of millions. And Ethan just threw him out of the wedding in front of everyone. Sophia looked devastated. Not because of the money revelation, because Ethan exposed who he truly was when he believed her father had none. The CFO turned toward security guards still holding Walter's arm. I suggest you let go of him immediately. They released him so quickly it almost looked painful. Ethan's face turned pale. Mr. Brooks. I didn't realize. Walter finally spoke quiet. That's the problem, son. Silence that followed felt heavier than the chandeliers above them. Walter adjusted his old jacket calmly while staring directly at Ethan. You decided my value before learning my name. Every word landed like concrete. Guests avoided eye contact now. As moments earlier, many of them silently agreed with Ethan's judgment too. Walter slowly looked around the ballroom. You know, he continued softly, I wore this same suit when I signed the first contract that built my company. Nobody interrupted him. Kept it because it reminds me where I started. His rough hands brushed the fabric gently. Back then nobody respected me either. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, because unlike Ethan, her father never cared about appearances. He cared about character, the thing money couldn't purchase. Ethan stepped forward desperately. Sir, this is all a misunderstanding. No, Walter replied calmly. It's an understanding arriving late. Several executives nearby shifted uncomfortably, especially after realizing Ethan publicly insulted the very men whose company made their careers possible. The CFO watched silently beside Walter. Unlike most people there, he knew the full story. After Walter retired, he intentionally avoided luxury lifestyles because he spent childhood watching poverty destroy his parents emotionally. The poor old man wasn't poor at all. He was worth hundreds of millions. Ethan just threw him out of the wedding in front of everyone. Sophia looked devastated. Not because of the money revelation, because Ethan exposed who he truly was when he believed her father had none. The CFO turned toward security guards still holding Walter's arm. I suggest you let go of him immediately. They released him so quickly it almost looked painful. Ethan's face turned pale. Mr. Brooks. I didn't realize. Walter finally spoke quietly. That's the problem, son. The silence that followed felt heavier than the chandeliers above them. Walter adjusted his old jacket calmly while staring directly at Ethan. You decided my value before learning my name. Every word landed like concrete. Guests avoided eye contact now, because moments earlier, many of them silently agreed with Ethan's judgment too. Walter slowly looked around the ballroom. You know, he continued softly, I wore this same suit when I signed the first contract that built my company. Nobody interrupted him. I kept it because it reminds me where I started. His rough hands brushed the fabric gently. Back then nobody respected me either. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, because unlike Ethan, her father never cared about appearances. He cared about character, the thing money couldn't purchase. Ethan stepped forward desperately. Sir, this is all a misunderstanding. No, Walter replied calmly. It's an understanding arriving late. Several executives nearby shifted uncomfortably, especially after realizing Ethan publicly insulted the very men whose company made their careers possible. The CFO watched silently beside Walter. Unlike most people there, he knew the full story. After Walter retired, he intentionally avoided luxury lifestyles because he spent childhood watching poverty destroy his parents emotionally. He turned toward Walter again. Mr. Brooks, I sincerely apologize. Walter studied him silently, then asked the question Ethan couldn't answer. Would you still apologize if I wasn't rich? That question destroyed whatever defense remained, as everyone knew the truth immediately. No, he wouldn't. Sophia closed her eyes briefly, and in that moment, something inside her finally broke. Not loudly. Quietly. Dangerous kind of breaking that changes lives permanently. She removed her wedding ring slowly. Gasps spread instantly across the ballroom. Ethan stared in horror. Sophia, what are you doing? Her voice trembled, but remained steady enough to cut through the silence. I can survive stress. I can survive hard times. But I can't marry someone who humiliates my father for looking poor. The ballroom erupted into whispers. Several guests secretly filmed everything now, because real human collapse always attracts attention faster than staged perfection. Ethan reached toward her desperately. Please don't do this. Sophia stepped backward. You didn't insult a stranger tonight. She looked toward Walter with tears forming. You insulted the men who taught me how to respect people. Walter's expression softened painfully. He never wanted to ruin his daughter's wedding. Truth arrived anyway, and sometimes truth walks through front doors wearing old shoes and wrinkled jackets. The wedding planner stood frozen near the stage trying not to panic while $500,000 decorations surrounded emotional disaster. Outside the ballroom, rain hammered against hotel windows while reporters downstairs began hearing rumors about a major corporate executive scandal unfolding upstairs. Meanwhile, Ethan's career crumbled silently in real time. Not because Walter held power over him, because character eventually reveals itself under pressure, and powerful people noticed. Walter slowly walked toward Sophia and gently handed her the small gift box he carried since arriving. For you, he said softly. Sophia opened it carefully. Inside rested a simple silver compass. Confused tears filled her eyes. Walter smiled faintly. Your mother carried that compass every day before she died. Sophia pressed a hand against her mouth emotionally. Walter continued quietly. She used to say life becomes dangerous when people confuse direction with appearance. The ballroom stayed completely silent listening to him. She believed the best people often arrive looking ordinary. Ethan lowered his eyes for the first time all night, because suddenly his expensive suit felt worthless. Walter gently touched Sophia's shoulder. You still have time to choose the right direction. He turned calmly toward the ballroom exit. The CFO immediately followed behind him. But before leaving completely, Walter stopped beside Ethan one final time, and delivered the sentence nobody there would ever forget. Poor isn't what a person wears, son, directly into Ethan's eyes. It's how small they become when judging others. And he walked out, leaving behind silence heavier than any public humiliation. Inside the shattered luxury ballroom, Ethan Carlisle finally understood something too late. The moment he threw out the men who looked poor, he exposed the poverty inside himself instead.